What is up, Fantasy Football Squad? The Ryan and Jacob Show is back for the final podcast of the 2021 Fantasy Football season. Hunt for the what was the cup?
Delta.
The Delta Cup. We've had too many variants now. I can't keep up. Next year is going to be the Omicron Cup. What is up, boys? We're back, though. We took a little hiatus for Jacob's had his daughter. Congrats to Jacob. Little claps in the chat. All right. All right. So here we got our mini game table to the left. We got our final payout table to the right. Congratulations to Matt on a season victory. I said this on the Facebook post. I mean, if we look back 3-4 weeks ago, I don't think anybody had a Matt championship in their fantasy card for this season. So congrats to Matt. He takes down Chewy, who really dominated the season this year. So I mean, man, what a win. What did you think about the Matt upset here?
Yeah, Matt did well. He did well when it counted. St. Brown went off the last 4 weeks. I actually didn't really watch much football, to be honest with you, that last month of the season so far. We were pretty busy. But yeah, I mean, that guy was just a beast for him. I know that for a fact. And Chewy was 13-1 and got second. And it kind of was the same thing as last year. Jimmy, I know Jimmy wasn't 13-1, but Jimmy was like ahead of the pack for the regular season. Then he lost to Chewy in the championship. But I'm glad that Matt won. I didn't want to see Chewy go back-to-back, even though Matt's got 2 titles now, but it's not back-to-back. So I don't want Matt to win next year. So.
Yeah. I don't think we ever would have heard the end of Chewy winning back-to-back there. But yeah, congrats to Matt on his second championship of the season. And congrats to everybody else. Everybody won money here, I think, except we were talking about this before the pod. I think everybody won a little bit of cash except for 3 guys, Jimmy, Lubasi, and Jeff. Who's the 4th guy?
And Dom.
Oh, Jimmy, Lubasi, Jeff, and Dom. Sorry to you guys. No money this year coming out. It sucks to see, but congratulations to everybody. We had another great season. Again, thanks everyone for being a part of this. This league is nothing without you guys, and super happy to keep this going. I can't wait for next year, but we'll get into that later. Let's talk about this year. Matt takes first, Chewy takes second, and Chris with a 3rd place. Even with the Derrick Henry going down for the season, Chris still gnaws his way into the playoffs and pulls out the 3rd place. You're welcome for Elijah Mitchell. I think I helped you get there. But, yeah, man, what a great season.
Yeah, and I feel really bad for Dom. Dom had a really good season, and he got in the playoffs, and his team just literally was just bad. He finished 10-4. His points for were 6th in the league. So, I mean, he had a pretty good team. And if you see his scores for this playoff push that he needed really badly, Godwin got hurt the last, I think, regular season for us game of the season. But he shows up with a 128.
It's tough.
In the first round, which is like 64 points average.
That's not good.
And then he shows up with a 192 for the 3rd place game. I mean, that's not good.
Honestly,
better though.
Pretty close on the last game versus Chris there. I mean, we only lost by 10 points, or not 10 points. I don't know how to do math. Like 16 points. But, I mean, pretty close game. Chris didn't have a super stellar last couple weeks either. That was actually just a really good game for the 3rd place there. But, yeah, man, that's a tough finish for Team Dom. He's always got a strong team, and he definitely did this year. But sometimes you just get to the playoffs and have some unfortunate injuries like he did, and things fizzle out. But I'm sure that'll just make him that much hungrier to come back next year.
It's funny because we were texting a couple days ago. He did the same thing in baseball, but he was like the best team in the regular season in baseball, and then he got 4th place with no money to end the year. So he's just had terrible luck in the fantasy sports. But yeah, Chris gets third, and then Johnny actually gets fourth. He beat you by 3 points in the first round of the playoffs, and then he beat Lubasi by about 16 points, or 18. It's not 16 points. Yeah, math's hard. 16 points in the second round, and then he beat Dom, who got fourth place. So the winner of the $75 for fourth place was going against Johnny versus Dom, and then Johnny won. So that's how we kind of calculated the fourth place payout, and Johnny did well. I think Matt had the highest. No, James actually had the highest score.
Yeah, James smoked my ass.
Yeah, he killed you. But yeah, it was a good season. Jeff, well, we got to talk about this. Jeff with the last place. He loses to Rudy by 8 points in the first round, which was a really close game. And then he gets just mollywopped by Jimmy. He throws a 158 in there, which is the worst score you could possibly want. And you're in the deciding factor. So, as we all know, for the last place punishment, we talked to Jeff about it. He will be getting his pits waxed. He should be coming to South Bend, I think, at the end of the month or beginning of the month. So I hope that's when he's planning on doing it, because I want to kind of be there, or like, I want to be there when it happens. So
I'll definitely be making a special trip up. We could get the whole league into that spa, dude.
So, I can't wait. I'm glad it was Jeff, just because it's just going to be more funny, because it's just going to be really funny. I can't wait for that.
Just because we're going to try and be there for it.
Yeah. And Jeff had just not a terrible year. Okay, yeah, he had a terrible year. But his team was looking kind of up some weeks, but just more down weeks for him. 3-11 he finishes. I don't know if that's I think we can go to the history Excel that I have later on, but I think that might be the worst record in our fantasy league history, at least for the 3-4 years that we have.
I think it will be close, because I think Chris had one really bad year in the past 3. Usually Chris is on the top, but when he had his really bad year, I think he got like 3 or 4 wins. Yeah, you might as well just check it now, because we're going to end up talking about it. But I think as you're looking for this, the 3-10, yeah. So they tied for the work. Well, Jeff, he had an extra game. He had an extra game to try and pull it out. So yeah, 3-11 is the worst. And I think we were talking about this before the pod too. I think it can all be traced back to the dropping of Justin Herbert. I think week 3, after Justin Herbert off to a rocky start. Jeff said, "I ain't dealing with this guy anymore. He can be somebody else's problem," to quote him. And he became my problem, but actually my savior, because as we're looking at it, my points for were second worst in the league. And I truly think that had that Justin Herbert thing not happened, I could be possibly staring at this last place right now. I'm not positive on that, but it's definitely possible, because I only scored 60 more points than Jeff this year, and I only averaged 4 more points a game than him, which is just utterly embarrassing for me to not even average triple digits in a PPR league. But that's besides the point. But yeah, man, I think that Justin Herbert move really locked in Jeff's fate.
Yeah, not a great move by him. I'm sure he's going to learn from all his mistakes, though, and be okay next year. I think he's just kind of, I don't even want to say this was a learning experience, because he's been in other leagues. So I don't really know what was his mindset, but it is what it is. All you got to do is learn from it. But I don't know if you would have been in the last place, maybe, but your point differential, you had the points against. I guess you weren't that bad. Well, I guess you were third best in that category, like the third lowest. And Jeff was middle of the road. So, yeah, you could actually be kind of in line with him. But, yeah, you can see Chewy, utter domination. He did have the lowest points against, so every time people went against him, they kind of sucked. But when you're averaging 117, I think you're going to win most games anyway. But, yeah, it was pure – Chewy just had a really good team. A lot of his running backs worked out. Fournette was really good for him. Let's just go see his team. Fournette was really good for him. Montgomery, when he was healthy. DJ Moore started the year off really good. Jalen Waddle was probably the best.
And a PPR standpoint, that guy was just getting catch after catch.
Yeah. And then his trade with you to get I guess he dropped him. But to get Darrell Henderson, he did pretty well in the middle of the season until he got hurt, but then he handcuffed him with Sony. He just had a really good year. His wide receivers actually stood out. I didn't think they were strong. DJ Moore had a really good start of the year, like I said, but Deontay Johnson was pretty good, pretty consistent on a bad Steelers offense. So that's
top 10 wide receiver. Can't beat it.
Got what you brought in there.
That was a good value pick. But yeah, like you said, I mean, just a good team from Chewy here. And these are Chewy drafted a team, and I think we talked about this in the draft pod. I mean, just a team that was full of guys that I feel like were expected to be busts and just were not. He drafted Travis Kelce in the first round, which is always a roll of the dice going for a tight end, but at the same time, it is Travis Kelce. And I mean, those numbers coming from the tight end spot, that's a great thing, because sometimes that tight end spot can make or break you. Jonathan Taylor had one of the best seasons of all time, finishing as the number one fantasy running back, probably by a very wide margin. But yeah, I mean, I think Chewy throughout the whole season had the best team. But man, again, what a great underdog story for Matt to come from like almost out of nowhere and pull out the win.
Yeah, and Matt's team actually got some love in our preseason. I think Jimmy, I think he had 2 votes for the best team coming in the preseason. Where's Matt here? Where am I looking at? Right here. And he had a good team. Najee Harris, I think my first write-up or second write-up, I said like who was going to make or break your season, and I picked Najee Harris for Matt. And you can see he had a really good year as a rookie running back, 4th best running back. He got him in the second round, 14th overall pick, and he had a really good year. And I think this is the main reason why he won the whole league. Najee Harris did very well. A 3.6 and a 7.5 ain't that great, but 13 and 28 is really good to kind of combat those bad scores in the playoffs. But yeah, I was staying away from Najee. I didn't know what to expect from him, and he did very well.
I think we got to mention that trade that he does with Rudy to get George Kittle. He sends away Pat Mahomes. He gets Dak Prescott and George Kittle. That was a huge move for him, you know? I mean, is this George Kittle right here? He had a tough last few weeks, but those last few games kind of, I think, propelled Matt into the playoffs. And then, he looks like he didn't do too well, but then he got Amon-Ra St. Brown, who just went straight dummy once the playoffs hit. And I mean, that right there, look at that season. Like, he was doing nothing. And then the playoff time came around and he was just going crazy. I think that trade from Matt to Rudy was a pretty big move. Pat Mahomes had some up and down games, but Dak Prescott really showed up in a lot of these games. Look at that, 31, 23, 31. He didn't even play in that week 18 though, so I guess that doesn't even matter. But
it was still good. I mean, probably comparable Pat Mahomes. Like I said, I think I said this right after the trade that Matt basically got George Kittle for free with trading Dak and Pat Mahomes are basically the same quarterback. So Kittle is a free tight end. I would take that any day. He had a rough couple weeks, like last couple weeks, but I think he was pretty important for him to get into the playoffs or keep him alive at least.
Yeah, so T. Higgins and Alexander Madison. Alexander Madison had a few big games with Dalvin Cook out, and then T. Higgins had a great finish to his season too. The Bengals offense really heated up at the end. I'm excited to see them in the playoffs, just as a off-topic comment. But, man, honestly, just some great moves by Matt, and I think he earns this win. And congratulations on a championship season, man. That's awesome. And I do want to shout out James's team, because that guy was, when we were coming out of the draft, I think most people were calling his team the best. That guy put up the second most points, and then even in the playoffs, he wasn't really playing for anything, but that dude, I think, maybe scored the most points out of anybody. If you could check that. So I want to give a shout out to Team James, because he did pummel me, so maybe I'm a little biased, but I just wanted to say that because he had a great finish to the season, even though it wasn't really much on the line. But he had a really good team all year and just caught some really tough losses. I mean, he put up the highest score that I think I've ever seen in our fantasy history with that 175 or whatever it was, which was just insane. So congratulations to James on that. I'm sorry that you didn't win anything in the playoffs, but a good season by you nonetheless, man.
Yeah, he definitely had the most points in the playoffs. And I think I said that every time I did a power rankings, every time I said who had the best team in the league, I always said James. I didn't rate him number one, of course, because of his record, but he definitely had the best team. Cooper Kupp, great pickup. I think he was like a 4th round pickup. Turns out to be the number one wide receiver. That was a great pickup.
By a mile.
And then he had Lamar Jackson before he got hurt. He was clowning with Mark Andrews. Even Hunter Renfrow, he was a good 11th best wide receiver in the league, and he got him.
And free agent.
He added him off of waivers. Yeah, he got him off of waivers. Great pickup by him. And then Damian Harris, he swapped teams a lot. He started on my team, then he went to Jimmy's team, and then ended up with James. But he did have D. Hopkins for a while, but he traded him at a pretty good time, because I don't know if Hopkins really played for Jimmy all that much. I know he got hurt a lot. But then Eckler with his first-round pick he's a solid first round. He didn't have like a spectacular year. Well, I guess he was the second best.
The number 2.
Yeah, he had a pretty good year. He got him like second, that was his first overall pick. So that was a good pick. Yes, I mean, just a great team. Mike Davis was probably his biggest bust. He didn't do that well this year. But
to that point, though, on the Eckler finishing number 2, that just goes to show you how much of a wide margin there was between Jonathan Taylor and the rest of the field, because Austin Eckler kind of flew under the radar and he finished as the second best, but Jonathan Taylor just flat out destroyed every running back in every category. But yeah, man, shout out to James's team, because he put together a hell of a squad here and just got terrible luck. So I'm sure that's going to fire him up for next season too.
Number 1 tight end, number 1 wide receiver, number 2 running back. Lamar Jackson would have finished, if he finished the whole year, at least a top 10 quarterback. So, I mean, that's
probably
just
top 5.
Yeah, maybe top 5. That's just a ridiculous team. And to end up with nothing, I would be like, I might cry. I might cry if I was James, because I would be so mad, because this is such a well-constructed team. James hasn't had much luck in this league. He hasn't had – I mean, I'm sure he's made the playoffs, but I don't think he's ever really got like top 2. He's just had terrible luck, kind of like Dom. He's been in this league since almost – I think he's joined the league maybe year 2 or 3. I met him during bowling season my junior or senior year, and he's been in it ever since. And just no luck. And I honestly thought this was a year for him preseason, and I was kind of right, but just it did not work out for him.
Yeah, and I can't remember. I know we were talking about this at the beginning of the season when we were looking at the history, but I don't know if he has made the playoffs, because I think that was one of those. It might have been one of those things where we were just super shocked. But I and if you have, James, I apologize, but I was thinking that might be the case. But if you have, sorry, but yeah. Nonetheless, it's just terrible luck here, because he had a hell of a squad.
Yeah, and like you said in the beginning, this was a great season. Again, here's the records, points for. Lubasi had a pretty good year too. I think this was probably Lubasi's best year in fantasy football. He goes 7-7. He did have a great team, probably the best team he's ever drafted. That's Stephon Diggs. Josh Allen's a great stack. Won the league last year. He tried to win it again this year with it, but just couldn't make the playoffs. Jimmy had a really good team. Just bad luck. Look at those points against 121 points on average.
That's an average. That is an average, dude. That is crazy. That is absolutely unheard of. And you know what? Look at that. Team Rudy. I didn't even notice this. Too. Rudy had the same thing. Now, granted, Rudy's team was not great. All right. I think we can all admit that. I think we talked about that from the beginning. No offense to you, Rudy, but I think we can all agree that the team was not top caliber this year. But that is still a ridiculous amount of points against. You probably could have had a little bit of a better record had you not been, shafted by every team that you played with those high points. But hopefully next year you'll see a little bit better luck there. We don't have to go into every team, but we can at least touch on some. Team Johnny had a great year. I mean, there was a time where Johnny's team was looking primed for a pretty nice run. He got hit with a few tough injuries along the way. And then who haven't we talked about yet? Jeff's team was god awful, and I think he knows that.
I think the only two teams we haven't at least mentioned is mine and yours. My team, I like my team. I don't think I would do anything different. Like if I had to make the same decisions, I'd probably make the same decisions. Hindsight's always 20/20. I liked my team. Injuries kind of happened, and I kind of rolled the dice, went all in on a couple people, and it just didn't work that way, my way this time. But I'm ready for next year. I'm ready to get back and construct my team again, and make a run next year.
Yeah, this is I think my team lived and died on draft day. I made that big move for the Justin Fields thing, and I even told everybody then, like, this is either going to make me or break me, and it was a pretty bad call. It was a pretty bad call. I was not banking on how awful of an offense the Bears was going to be this year. I had very high hopes, and I think I may have watched maybe the worst season of Chicago Bears football of my entire life. So yeah, that was a really bad pick by me. But like I said earlier, I got gifted from the fantasy gods. I don't know what was going through Jeff's head when he dropped Justin Herbert, but he just really kind of landed in my lap. And that saved me, I think, from getting my pits waxed this year. So, I said it at the beginning of the season. I'll say it now. Thank you, Jeff. I didn't win any money, but at least I'm not going to be in armpit pain. So before we sign off, here's again our money situation. I'll post this to the Facebook page right after we're done with this podcast. But I should have money to you guys by tomorrow. I'm going to go to the bank, kind of move some money around. And hopefully give my money, all my money to Cass to give you guys. I think everyone at least Venmo'd me or Cash App me except James and Rudy. So you guys can either save your funds for next year or I can give you guys cash so we can meet up or do something about that. So hopefully funds you will see tomorrow with this podcast. Hopefully you guys have the money when you listen to this podcast. That's my goal. Excuse me. So that's my plan on that. Yeah, and again, from the commissioners, we want to thank you guys again for being a part of this. This is some of the most fun that we have out of our entire year, every year. We hope to make every season better as we go on. I definitely think we have some things to talk about for next year to make some improvements. I know one big thing that I've talked to a few people about is having guests on the podcast, and I know we've brought it up before. I still want to try and do that, and hopefully next year will be the year that we can start bringing some people on to talk shit and what have you on the pod. I've always wanted that to happen, and we're just trying to figure out how to make that work best way possible. And then we'll be thinking about new mini games and new different categories and stuff we'll talk about higher buy-ins to see if we can kind of expand some of the thoughts on new ways to win money in the league. So I look forward to the off season, but I'm super excited for next year already. It's going to be bigger and better as always. And thanks again, guys. So do you got any final closing thoughts for the year?
Nope. I think, it was a great year. I think the best time we should have done guests this year would have been that trade frenzy. That would have been a good time to add a couple people and just kind of argue, or two, just talk in different perspectives. But yeah, we'll try to figure that stuff out. This is still kind of new, I guess, with the podcast, where it's always something that we can work on. It's just fun to do, fun to talk about. Look forward to doing it. So yeah, just any way we can make stuff better, let us know. And I can't wait for next year.
Yeah, we will definitely figure out ways to make this bigger and better, more fun for everybody. And yeah, that does it for the 2021 season. Congratulations again to our winner, Matt, taking home the Delta Cup 2021. And this is the Ryan and Jacob Show. We'll see you guys next year.
Peace.
Peace.